Today on episode 70 of Rail Talk, we discuss the tenuous situation in California racing, welcome Samantha Perry to preview the Gulfstream Championship meet, and talk to our guy Len Green for tax strategies and updates for 2025. I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds, and it was a great weekend. Kendrick Lamar dropped the album of the year as a surprise release. I love the era of surprise releases. And one of our two favorite associate producers, Julia Gresta, is back. Welcome back, Jules. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, wherever you get your pods. Smash that button.
Very well done, Joe. Jonathan Green, General Manager of DJ Stable. It is episode 70. We have album releases. We have races coming that we're going to be talking about, including the Japan Cup, $7 million Japan Cup, Joe. Don't forget that was won by Do Deuce and a local who went from last to first. It was good to see that. Good to see a lot of publicity and the hundreds of millions of dollars that was wagered on that race and on that day. So racing is alive and well, albeit across the ocean.
Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade. Fabulous year, as always, for TaylorMade in the sales ring. They were leading consignor at the recent Keeneland November sale. They're heavy into the digital sales as well. They can take care of you no matter what kind of horse you want to bring to the market. And I believe John has a relevant story to that.
Yeah, Joe, it was pretty amazing. I woke up this morning after a weekend of watching races, and I got a text from our man, Jeff Hazlett at TaylorMade, saying, hey, just wanted to let you know that I know we're selling a fall out of Peace Lily in the upcoming digital sale. I want to let you know that Peace Lily's half sister, Forever After All, finished second in a grade 2, and we're going to update the notes and website for that fall. Joe, that was even before I knew the results of the race. And Jeff was already texting me this morning as to what was going on and already how they were going to promote that. So if people ask, why do you need an agent? Why do you need a consignor when it comes to the digital sales? This is exactly the reason. I mean, I would have found out that the horse ran second in a graded stake race. Don't get me wrong. But to be able to already have it in motion as far as how they were going to publicize, how they were going to, let the potential buyers know of this update was huge. So again, tip of the cap to Jeff Hazlett specifically, but all of our friends at TaylorMade and for all that they do. And this is just one example of the numerous things that they add as far as value goes and why we use them time and time again.
So we wanted to touch on this. This is a developing story. We talked about this earlier in the year when Golden Gate Fields closed. The Stronach Group closed Golden Gate Fields down, and that basically was the racing footprint for all of Northern California. They have the fair circuit, but that was the home base for Northern California horsemen, and it kind of left them scrambling. And now they're trying to patch together a fair circuit. Pleasanton now is like the main locale for Northern California racing for the moment, and the handle numbers have been terrible for the early parts of the Pleasanton meet, and people are noticing. And it elicited a response from Aiden Butler from the Stronach Group, where he brought forth this idea that there needs to be some kind of cooperation between the Northern California horsemen and the Southern California tracks. Now, I will say I understand Northern California people being like, oh, that's kind of rich from the people that shut us down, that now you got to tell us we have to come crawling back and come to the table. That being said, it just is an untenable situation with what's going on right now. Santa Anita is having trouble enough filling races and filling cards. And obviously the Northern California does not seem like they have a permanent solution for, the loss of Golden Gate Fields. So I think there definitely does need to be one circuit for the most part, with maybe a couple of fairs, week-long fairs popping up here and there in the north. It's tough because it's a long ship and it's costly. People don't want to relocate, understandably, from Northern California. There's a lot of bitterness that is like the undercurrent of all these negotiations. But from what Aiden Butler is talking about and from what the CHRB has been saying, it does seem like there's some kind of room for cooperation here. And I really do not want to see California racing go away. California racing is, especially at Santa Anita, has been a staple of American racing for about 100 years, pretty much. And I don't want California racing to go away because that'll be the biggest domino to fall, to suggest that eventually we're just going to have Kentucky racing. And I don't think that that's anything anybody wants in this business. I think there's a lot of nuances to this discussion. Not having the subsidies from alternative gaming, I think, is really the main culprit of why Santa Anita is struggling so much. But yeah, this is John. I read these stories and it's just like, yeah, I get why there's animosity here, but we're all in the business of wanting to keep racing going in California. They just need to put their heads together and come up with a solution.
Yeah, and Joe, there's no easy answer, and we've interviewed dozens of people here on this show asking about California racing. Most recently with Michelle Yu, who highlighted a lot of the issues going on in California. Whether it's because you can't find the proper labor, it's too costly. The purses aren't good enough. There aren't enough horses. So when you're running in a 5-horse field, and 3 of which are usually by one trainer. So there's a lot of things. There's a shortage of horses out there. So there's a lot of issues. It's not just 1 or 2 that are making this situation into a difficult one. And Joe, I've had the benefit of sitting in on a lot of horse related board meetings, and I have to say that this one actually was I wouldn't say must see TV, but if you're going to watch one, I would recommend going onto the Pollock Report and reading the article. And there's a clickable that will bring you actually to a link for the webcast of the meeting. You can kind of scroll through it pretty quickly to get to the important points, but I give the California Horsemen's Racing Board a lot of credit for even listening, because it wasn't an item that was on the agenda. It was an ad hoc item. I think Aiden, whether he was prepared to have this conversation at that meeting or not, you have to ask him. But he did certainly voice his concerns and opinions, and gave a couple of suggestions, albeit without any real substantive plan behind it or details behind it. But they did listen, and hopefully that's part of an important progressing dialogue that's going to continue to move forward. Joe, I thought the other interesting thing about the meeting was the fact that if I'm reading the article correctly on the Pollock Report, there was actually a representative from PETA who gave a lengthy, well-documented presentation on unsanctioned horse racing. And you'd say, well, we don't care because we're sanctioned horse racing. Why should we give a shit? Again, it's the idea that when there's breakdowns involving athletes that are, equine athletes, it has a negative impact, negative effect, negative appearance on the overall racing community. And I think that the fact that they came in and made a presentation and then said, hey guys, why is this important? Aside from all the other, reasons that I mentioned, well, it's important because there's a CHRB rule 1902, which Joe, but for the benefit of our listeners, I'll dictate, which basically prohibits licensees from participating in or even attending non-recognized race meets. And PETA said that's not being properly enforced. And you know what? They're right. And they were right to the point where Vice Chair Gonzalez said, it sounds like we have some work to do with our stewards, to be quite honest. I thought that was interesting also, that they're taking information from PETA and basically PETA saying, hey, this is why it looks negatively upon you guys, because you're basically, indirectly approving this, at least from a tacit standpoint, that it's okay that you guys have participants that maybe are either racing in or attending these unsanctioned meets. And because of that, horses are breaking down. And that's why you should be concerned, because if you're in the equine industry, then you should be concerned about all equine related athletes that are dying. And you can argue with it, but at the end of the day, that's what the general public sees, Joe. They see that we're not doing our own house cleaning and taking care of what we need to do in our industry. And therefore it's spilling over into other unrecognized or non-sanctioned parts of our racing industry as well.
Well, yeah, and that's the individual in question was a jockey that rides at low salaries, quarter horse jockey that supposedly was at these unsanctioned races. He says he was just attending, and unclear whether or not he was actually riding. But yeah, I mean those places are horrible and cruel, and I think it's good that somebody is on top of it. I mean, just going back to the original point, I think I would love to have somebody on from CHRB or some of the movers and shakers in California racing to discuss whether or not there was a push to get historical horse racing or to get in with the Native American tribes and try to get casinos on site at some of these California racetracks, because they're doing their best to put on these cards, and they've done a great job in terms of increasing safety. California has been done a total 180 in that regard, and I'm like really excited about that. And it's a staple of American racing, and it just I hate the fact that you can't really survive anymore in this country unless you're in Kentucky, even if you're in Kentucky, without some kind of alternative gaming revenue. But that's just the reality. And like, unless you want to see California racing go away, that to me needs to be the number one priority. I'm sure in the state house, there's probably some resistance to it that I'm not privy to. But yeah, that and the cooperation between the North and the South, like this is, Aiden Butler said it. He's like, this is suicide right now to have us competing, because Santa Anita is like the average field size is like 6.5. And Pleasanton, the average field size is like 6.5. Now, if you want to write more races for those Golden Gate or those Northern California horses in Southern California, I think that makes a lot of sense. Cover transportation costs for people to ship. It just like, I get why the Northern California horsemen might be like, you shut us down. Like, why the hell do we want to help you save your product? It's good for everybody. Like, this is not a tenable situation to have these two sides of the state competing. And and the time is of the essence, because in December, there's going to be the application for 2025 race dates. So this is something that I think needs to be figured out in like the next couple of weeks, ideally, to have people from the Stronach Group and have people from the CHRB and have people from the ARF come to the table together and figure out a path forward. And I think we've seen that cooperation is good in this industry. We don't get enough of it. I think there should be more on the Mid-Atlantic, the East Coast as well. But this is a dire situation. And without people kind of realizing that they all need to push in the same direction to save racing as a whole in the state, they're going to be in big, big trouble.
And
switching gears.
Just to jump in there, I mean, again, we extend invitations all the time, but I think, it would behoove everyone in the industry if Chairman Ferraro would come on, or Vice Chair Gonzalez, any of the commissioners. Obviously Aiden, we've had on before, but we're trying to help solve this problem and help increase communication on how to make it a viable part of the industry. Because you're right, without California, that's a major domino that's going to fall. And I don't think there's another state that you can point to that you would say, hey, this is where the slack is going to get picked up. This is where an up and coming racing organization, or racing state is going to, step in the shoes of California. There's a reason why the Breeders' Cup is in California every other year. It's not just because of the weather. It's because, there's a lot of positive things that can be done with California racing. They're just not at that point right now. But any communication, any dialogue that we can help promote, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, no, for real. Like I don't want to see California racing go away. So yeah, if anybody wants to come on and chat or send us an email or something about what's going on, we'd love to at least be in the loop. If not, be able to help the situation. Moving forward to this coming weekend, we've got the Churchill, we got the Clark card, we got the Saturday races with the Goldenrod and the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes. So this is kind of the last big hurrah in Kentucky racing until the spring. So we're looking forward to that. And Saturday, Carson's Run goes for his third Grade 1 win in the Hollywood Derby at Del Mar. It's been an unbelievable season for him. To me, he's the best 3-year-old turf horse in America, and he's been a dream come true for a son of Cupid out of a Henny Hughes mare to be a multiple Grade 1 winner on the grass. Like, there's something special. Yeah, my boy Cupid. That's right, the itsy bitsy spider for Cupid. I can't wait for that. Del Mar's got the big closing weekend as well before the Los Alamitos and then Santa Anita at the end of December. One horse in particular I'm looking forward to watching on Saturday is Jonathan's Way in the Kentucky Jockey Club. I thought he was the best 2-year-old I saw all summer at Saratoga, and then he didn't run a step in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So I don't know what that was about. Maybe the pace was just too slow. I'm interested to see how he bounces back. I like that they're running him back, relatively quickly, only 3 weeks or I guess 4 weeks after the Breeders' Cup. So I'm looking forward to seeing him and seeing what kind of big 2-year-old performances pop up out of the weekend. Because there were a couple others I wanted to mention as we do start to look forward to the Derby. Bob Baffert had a 1-2 on Saturday at Del Mar, a horse named Romanesque. that won first time out, and his horse who ran second, I can't remember the name, but was really, really impressive too. So those are two to look for in the early into 2025. And there was a race at Churchill on Saturday we were involved in. We debuted $1 million yearling from last year, Yinzer, who ran third in a really live looking maiden race at Churchill Downs. It was the seventh race on Saturday. Top three, I think, are all really good, and we were really excited to see Yinzer run so well. Mo Quality was the winner of that race for Chris Davis. I don't know, John. It's very early, but I just think that I've seen a lot of really, really nice 2-year-olds so far. We had a great 3-year-old crop this season. I think we might have another really good one coming up in 2025. Rail Talk is sponsored by Fasig-Tipton. It's been a fabulous year for everybody at Fasig, from the Saratoga sale to the Fasig-Tipton Night of the Stars sale, the October sale, the July sale, Mid-Atlantic, everything in between. They've smashed it all across the board. But don't forget the digital sales coming up. The next one is December 5th through the 10th, the December digital sale. Catalog coming soon. The January digital sale is not far after that, January 16th through the 21st. You can enter now and just go check out the Fasig digital website. The portal is really, really impressive. You can learn more. You can see the schedule. You can see some of the past results. And as I said, the results just keep getting better and stronger in terms of the horse flesh and in terms of the prices that are being realized in that digital sales ring. It's so easy. Like, we have a couple horses at West Point that we're going to run through some of the digital sales. It's just so much easier than having to ship them to a physical sale. So go check it out at digital.fasigtipton.com. Don't get left behind.
So we are so thrilled to bring this next guest to the Real Talk studio. She's the excellent analyst down at Gulfstream Park, whose championship meet opens this weekend. Samantha Perry, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. It's good to be here.
Oh, so glad to have you. So, like I said, the eyes of the world will be upon you this Saturday as the Gulfstream Championship meet opens. Gulfstream is a year-round track now, but this is where the big guns really come.
Yeah.
Just tell me, what 30,000-foot view, what is so special about the championship meet? What are you looking forward to?
Well, it's about 20 degrees cooler than it is during the summer meet, which helps. It's like the world just turns and they're like, yeah, this is it. So you can even tell this weekend, guys, that just the atmosphere kind of changed. They're doing the last minute shrub and bush trimming and painting of things. And the crowd was actually really incredible this weekend, which was exciting. And I know the weather had a lot to do to that because it doesn't feel like hell on earth down here in Hallandale. But the main thing is that it's just, you see the quality of horses start to filter back. Sorry, I've got a cat behind me. I got a tail. Right. But it's really cool to see that gap. And I was talking with the other analysts about this yesterday, that when you see these other horses, like grade 1 winners, like White Avario on Friday, or yesterday with Olivia Darling, they just make the rest of the summer meet horses look like ponies, honestly.
Yeah, no question about it. And Sam, is there like a favorite week or weekend that you have during the championship meet?
Well, I think you guys have made Holy Bull my favorite right now.
Aw, that's very kind of you.
I think so, because I think it's, and on the other hand of that too, it's busy, but it's not Fountain of Youth. So like the stress is still kind of mildly high, and it's not Florida Derby where it's like, oh my God. And then it's not Pegasus where all of Southern Florida is at, like, on your back door. So I feel like it's a good, happy medium.
You guys might have gotten into this on the breakaway, but you do have a quarter horse jockey background and you're an excellent handicapper now. Did the handicapping come first, or did being a jockey come first and then you learned how to handicap?
My mom definitely broke a lot of rules when I was a kid by letting me bet at Remington Park in Oklahoma. I was rodeoing, and we would go from my rodeos to Remington Park, and like the trailer would be like out in the parking lot, and we would run in and go bet on the 4th race. And I would just tell Mom, oh, bet Cliff Berry like $2 on this. So, but I didn't know what I was doing by any means. And I feel like, and I say this a lot, there's a big difference between handicapping and then just knowing how to look at a horse, and both of those are like two different things. So I feel like we're learning every day, and if you stop learning, then what are you still doing?
Right. Right. And I would imagine that it would help, you talk about confirmation. It would help you when you're starting to look at these young 2-year-olds, early 3-year-olds when they come into the paddock, whether it's the first time or maybe it's the first time at Gulfstream. What specifically are you looking for in these young horses in order to give them the edge? If 2 or 3 horses are equal, based on your estimation on the numbers or whether or not they can win, what puts you over the top?
Probably at least just fitness level, especially if they haven't had, any races prior to, or if they're breezing one way and then it looks when they come to the paddock, they've lost about 50 pounds since whatever breeze, or have they bulked up, or have they grown from those April sales or the June sale or the March 2-year-old sales? Because you see a lot of horses, and you know this, John, that it seems like whenever they leave one of the 2-year-old sales, it's like they deflate. Yeah. Almost. Yeah. So, and it's paying attention to those specific consigners, and what to look for, and what's not. And most of that is just repetition.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think it's hard for me to tell the difference between horses at places like Gulfstream because their coats are always so beautiful, and like if the weather is so conducive to them always looking great and dappled out and everything like that. So like when they do all look so good, like what are like the very minute differentiations that I should look for?
So I'll give a great example. Rated by Merit, who is the undefeated 2-year-old who we'll see on Saturday here at Gulfstream in the last leg of the Florida Sire Stakes. That horse is the St. Elias zone, and Mike Yates trains the horse. That horse in the second leg, in between the first leg and the second leg of the Florida Sire Stakes, I had gone back to the barn and shot a little promo video when he was still the fastest 2-year-old. Read into that what you will with the buyer numbers, but and it was almost like he kind of looked like a non-sweater, which is just where their coat almost has this wave to it. And you can just kind of tell that they just don't sweat, which is bad for a horse. Some people even say like feeding them beer can help them sweat. Yep. And I just was looking, I was like, this is weird. Like we're in the dead of summer and this horse is like furry almost. I was like, this is odd. And I never asked Mike Yates about it because who am I to say anything? I'm not a trainer. And whenever he came for that second leg of the Florida Sire Stakes, he was just slick. And you could just tell the difference in the hair. And it wasn't being clipped either, because if you look a lot at these horses that have been clipped, you can see like on their tail, like up at the like the top of the tail, there's like a patch where you can see they still have like their original coat. And it was just like finally he turned over it almost. It was just like finally he caught that. And you could just see now, obviously, Joe, like it would be hard for you to see if you were looking at the first race and then seeing him in the paddock. Luckily, I was there. But I mentioned that, and of course, you look at the board and he's 1-9. So I'm not telling anybody anything special. But that would make a big difference for me and something that I would want to bring to the public with whoever was listening, like, hey, this horse was, he looked like he was about 1 week away from needing to be clipped, and now he looks phenomenal, and I can tell that they didn't clip him, and that makes a big difference, because horses, when they feel good on the inside, they look good on the outside.
Yep. So, Sam, aside from being a talent, being able to see horses and look to see if they're sweating or what's improved or like that, you did dip your toe this week into being a racetrack announcer. So I'm not going to embarrass you. We're not going to play the 2 races that you did, although I thought you did a fine job, especially in jumping in at the last minute. But I do want you to wear that hat and give us the play-by-play for a race that you would have run in at the College of Sequoias, because very few people know that you were like a track and field star as well in college. What would that race be like?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, let me tell you what happened yesterday. This was Sunday. We're sitting on the set and we did the show, and usually we stay out on the set after because there's just not a lot of time to go back to the office. And they said, hey, Ron, do you mind doing the changes? And he was like, yeah, no problem. So he read the changes from the set, and they go, hey, Sam, put on your headset. And it's like 3 minutes to post. And I was like, all right, just thought we were planning a video out. And I was like, yeah, what's up? And they go, hey, have you ever called a race before? I said, no. They go, okay, well, you're going to call the first race. I was like, wait, did you not just hear what I said? I said, no. They're like, it's fine. Just worry about the top 4 horses. Like, it's fine. Just get them around there. They were like, it's the first race. Don't worry.
Yeah,
it's the
nobody's
first race.
paying attention, right?
Yeah, nobody's paying attention. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I mic'd up and I'm sitting there looking at the little TV on our set, and I just have the pocket program in front of me. And they were like, okay, like at 0 minutes when they start loading in, your mic's just going to be hot the whole time. Like, we're just going to keep it on. And I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, there we go. And I just watched the TV. Now, as a handicapper, you always say like the number 2, Bapio, trained by Marquette, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was so hard to get that, not saying the number out of your mind. And I got him past the wire or whatever. I was like, whew, okay, we're done. We're good with that. And then I get a call from my boss, and he goes, hey, that was really good, but next time don't call the numbers. We're not a dog track. Don't call the numbers. Just call the horses. And I was like, yeah, next time. He goes, yep, you're going to do the second race. You just gave me something to think about and a whole other race that is now a sprint. And I was like, oh God. So yeah. And then I was thinking in my head, like, don't call the numbers. And when you're thinking that, you want to call them even more so.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh geez. I just tried to stay as calm as I could. I didn't want to get cute with it because first off, I don't have time to think about it and get cute with it, and just try to call the winner and not guess. Because when the camera switches to that head on, when I'm looking at the television, you don't know what's going on. So
Right. Yep.
I don't want to do that again.
Newfound respect, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I know. It's funny. People on social media, they were like, oh, why are they trying out somebody right before the championship meet? I'm like, you think I wanted to do this? Like, I would have practiced. I don't like getting thrown into things I'm not going to be good at. Like, that was just me. Team player here.
It was very good. I think you're being hard on yourself.
You're a great team player, and you had an extra 25 minutes to prepare for race 2 at least.
Yeah, come on. That's
which made it way worse. It was like sweating.
At least you improved. I mean, some of us, haven't improved from show 1 to show 70. So, I give you a lot of credit that you've actually improved.
We're talking about you, right?
We're talking about me, of course. I only talk about me. Haven't you learned? Joe's been a professional from the beginning.
I got a handicapping question for you, Sam. So a lot of people, so New York might get a synthetic track. It sounds like it's going to happen actually in the winter, so we can be racing year round at Belmont. A lot of people complain about synthetic tracks. It's been a reality at Gulfstream for a while now, the Tapeta. I find it to be like somewhat between dirt and turf, where speed isn't quite as much of a weapon as it is on dirt, but the turn of foot isn't quite as much of a weapon as it is on grass. Just give me some general pointers, because there's going to be a lot of synthetic racing over the winter at Gulfstream. What are some things you look for?
It's been a little bit of the bane of my existence the past couple of years. But I will say this. I find it less about trying to think if the horse handles the turf, they're going to handle this. I've gotten that completely out of my mind, because I treat it as a whole other surface. I get the thought process of it, and maybe the kickback would be the only thing. Like, if a horse doesn't like kickback, they're going to like the Tapeta. They're not going to get any. But the main thing is it changes so fast, the way it plays. So Saturday, if you were not on the front and it didn't matter how fast you were going, you didn't win a race going long or short on the Tapeta. Now, yesterday, and you're going into the Rainbow Six, that was mandatory. You think about that. I changed some picks in the morning, like, okay, well, the speed was good yesterday. I'm not going to pick a deep closer. Everything closed yesterday. Everything did. And came up the rail. Like Mark Cassie's horse came right up the rail. Irad Ortiz did a move on Saturday where instead of going to the outside, he dove into the rail, and the horse was in quicksand. So just in that less than 24 hours, that completely changed. And that's probably the most frustrating part as a handicapper, because everything that you think you know, you don't. And it can just change so fast, especially if it rains, if it's this or that. So the main thing that I would suggest, like when you're playing this, is if you're playing, especially like the pick 5s and the pick 6s, if you have leverage to buy those Tapeta races, buy them. I know that they say, oh, you don't hit the all ball, it's lazy. It's not even about being lazy. It's just about the fact that you don't know that. Now, maiden special weights, I have an advantage, and people who know how to look at horses have an advantage because they're not really fit. But on the other side of that, you don't have to be 100% fit to win on the Tapeta. You
Right.
really don't. You could be like 3 works short and still win. So I try to buy those races when I can. But I don't pay attention to the buyer figures because I feel like those for the Tapeta, it's just way too much guessing. You'll see like an 81 and it's like a $8,000 claimer. Like, no, that's not. But it's just the way that it plays. So just treat it as 3 different surfaces. And I found that kind of the sire stats for the Tapeta play out a little bit better too, which is nice. Like Yoshida is a really good Tapeta producer, which I had no idea. And like Antonio Sano had a horse a couple weeks ago. And that's a guy that, he races his horses into fitness and races them every other week. But first time on the Tapeta, and Yoshida was like 27%. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. The horse won at 20-1.
Wow. Wow.
No.
Yeah, and Joe, that's one of the things that I've always found fascinating in watching Sam's report, and Sam and Brian, of course, and Ron, pre-race, is they throw up these statistics, both good and bad, as far as like horses and trainer and jockey combinations that work really well in this scenario, and other ones that you want to stay way the hell away from. Which surprises me sometimes, because like you guys threw up there a couple of days ago, there was a trainer jockey combination and a horse that was coming back in distance. And I was like, oh, okay, and the horse is like 3-1. I was like, oh, this is a cinch. The horse has got the buyer numbers, sheet numbers. And Joe, it was like they were 0 for 32. And it was a trainer that wins at a 20% win percentage. So you knew that something was going on. And now, sure enough, the horse ran 4th. And now the statistic kind of keeps going. But Sam, are you seeing patterns like that more and more? Because now you've been there for a few years and you kind of have seen the regulars kind of go through different scenarios?
Yeah, you can kind of tell when people are just like taking a shot, like throwing something at the wall. Like, you mentioned with Cassie, like, just his ways of doing things, or, like, hey, if this person is dropping the horse in class, adding blinkers, and then they're going to go 2 turns on the Tapeta, you're like, ooh, that's like wave the red flag here. Yeah. But I mean, sometimes you can get lucky. And I think maybe as horsemen, that's what kind of the appeal is to the Tapeta, is you might not have 1, a fit horse, 2, a horse that's any good, and on any given Sunday, they can win.
Right.
Because just the perfect storm will strike up. You could run the same race 5 different times within 10 minutes and get a different result every single time.
Right.
No doubt. Last question from me. It's a personal one, because you're in Okie. You're from the Oklahoma area. You're in Miami now. Basically, it's a pretty big culture shock. Like, I'm sure you've been a couple other places along the way.
Yeah.
Like, how does it compare? Because I love Miami, but I know, like, being there all year in the summer, it gets hot as hell, and it's can be a little bit of a grind. How are you liking it down there, like, compared to like where you grew up?
Home is always home, and the cost of living definitely is so much cheaper in Oklahoma, and the ice cream is a lot better in Oklahoma than I've found anywhere here. We've got a really good local ice cream place in Oklahoma, but the weather is something that you really can't beat down here, which is just so, so nice, because even when it's so hot, I would rather suffer for 2 months than be in the cold. My body just doesn't do well in the cold anymore. And it was like, 67 degrees on Saturday, and I was wearing a turtleneck.
You're soft now.
My blood has completely thinned. But I think the biggest culture shock is just the people. You could go up to somebody who looks just like me and you speak to them in English, and then they come out like Slavic. And you're like, whoa.
Right.
Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. All right.
It's a melting pot for sure, but it's good, except the traffic. Everybody's coming back down here for the winter time now, so the traffic gets.
Yeah.
Luckily, I just go from work to home, so it doesn't really.
All right. Is there one hot spot that a snowbird or somebody visiting the Miami area, Hollywood area, should definitely hit before they leave?
Well, Gulfstream first.
Come on.
For sure.
Right,
I know.
Good.
That's given. Oh, gosh. That's so tough. I'm a workaholic. I don't have time to figure out a lot of things. I guess I'm trying to think of like a specific place, but I can't even think of one of those. But the beach.
Right, we'll edit this out.
Y'all already know that.
We'll edit this out. All right. So Joe's got the last question then, obviously. All right, Joe, go ahead. Close it.
So Sam, who knows nothing about Miami, no,
Basically, what if I just said Club Space? I was like, yeah, I was there till like
Space.
7 a.m. this morning.
There you go.
What?
There you go.
Oh.
Space, I know.
I have done that on a Sunday night though, because Space like never closes, and
Yeah.
there's been a Sunday night where a friend and I have gone out, and then all of a sudden it's Monday morning, and you look at your phone and it's 10 a.m. and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, they do like 24-hour parties.
Yeah,
God.
I know a couple space cadets.
yeah. I'm not one. I try. I faked it, and I was like, I don't know. I think being in bed sounds a little bit more fun. And then I was like, contemplate. I saw that she was like, should we go home now? I was like, wait, no, there's morning traffic. We got to wait another hour.
That sounds like a local.
Sun goes down again.
That's right.
You're like, oh shit.
Oh my
Got to
God.
stay longer. Sorry.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, that sun coming up is harsh.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this was a lot of fun. Samantha Perry, excellent analyst at Gulfstream Park. Check her out this weekend. The championship meet getting underway. Thank you for coming on. This was a blast.
Thank you guys. I always have so much fun. I always have people ask me, oh, when are you going back on Rail Talk? We had so much fun. My mom is anxiously awaiting this episode. So yeah, it's always so much fun. And you guys, you really, and I don't just say that because I'm friends with Jonathan and he also paid me to say this. You guys really do a phenomenal job at getting all sides of everything. And that's something that I appreciate. And you have to respect the candid conversations, Joe, and you too, Jonathan, you guys have.
Thank you. No,
and I mean that. I seriously do.
We appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
Yeah,
What's your mom's name?
Valerie.
Valerie, you raised a wonderful individual, and also Sam. And we're greatly thankful that you are a listener. And don't forget to subscribe. Please subscribe.
Yes, please do that, everybody. So then you don't miss an episode.
Right.
Exactly. Thanks, Sam. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Talk soon.
Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group. The Green Group is the #1 accounting firm in the horse business. Len told us they have almost 1,000 clients in the industry now. They help out all sorts of people, jockeys, trainers, assistants, owners, everybody in between. And on that note, we welcomed Len to the show this week to discuss some of the tax benefits that you can claim in 2025 if you're involved in horse ownership or involved in the business at all. Let's bring Len on the show to answer our questions. We have our returning champion guest coming back to the pod. I'm his favorite son, I think, but Len can confirm that for us. The founder and the CEO of the Green Group, Len Green. Welcome back, my dude.
Man, I got to tell you, each time I come back, your audience keeps on getting bigger and bigger.
I mean, yeah, it must be you. It must be the power of the Green Group. I hope the clients are building in the same fashion. Let's get into it. We're getting towards the end of the year. I got a lot of people at West Point. One of the first questions they asked me are, what are the tax benefits of joining a partnership? And, we've covered this a little bit, but I think if I remember correctly, it depends on how the business is classified, whether it's a hobby, whether it's passive, whether it's active. Can you just explain that to the people and what the different benefits are depending on how your horse involvement is classified?
I certainly will, Joe. And I've had a number of podcasts lately, West Point and TaylorMade and Toba and horse-related charities. So there's a whole bunch of questions that are varied, but there's a whole bunch of questions that are right down the middle. And probably the most asked is, if I'm involved in the horse business, what difference does it make whether it's a hobby or it's considered passive or active? And the answer is all the difference in the world. If it's a hobby, the income still has to be picked up, but the deductions are not allowed. If it's passive, well, you'd say, well, okay, my deductions are still allowed. Yeah, but only against passive income. Well, that's okay, Len. I have dividends, interest, capital gains. No, those are called investment income. Those are not passive income. So you need passive income to deduct passive losses, and most people do not have that. So now, number one, the hobby is the worst. Passive is second worst. I see so many tax returns that say passive loss carryover not used in prior years. That's crazy. And then active. Well, then I hear all kinds of stories about how active you have to be, and you have to have profits, and you have to have 500 hours, and all misconceptions. So I think later on, as we go through this thing, I will point out to you what you should be doing to be active. Okay? Also, Joe, I want to go over with you the fact that Biden hired a truckload of IRS agents because he said there's got to be gold in looking at everyone who has big losses in the horse business. So again, make believe you were being examined, okay, because you're a high income bracket person, okay? And the first thing the agent would say to you is, Joe, are you enjoying the game? And you would say, well, yeah, it's a good game. Great. And Joe, now that you're married, okay, you're looking at things for growth. So again, are you in this game, okay, because you expect to make money, or are you in this game to meet people and have fun? And you might say, well, meet people and have fun, I guess a little bit, okay? And then they'd ask you, do you have a separate bank account and you're running this thing in a business-like manner? Nah, it's not big enough to do that. I draw my checks to West Point out of my regular account. Okay. Then they say, do you have a business plan or strategy? Well, yeah, I know what I'm doing as far as trying to win. And that's why I joined West Point. Okay. When you look the whole thing around, the agents got you by the short strokes. Okay. Because you haven't done the things that people have to do to prove this is an active business. Do you have an advisory team? Well, most people don't have an advisor. They have an accountant or a lawyer or an agent who represents buyers and sellers. That's not independent. So again, what West Point gives you is, number one, you have opportunity to get horses at the highest level. 2, you get great jockeys. 3, you know that Terry and the gang are buying horses, okay, through people, and they're independent in the sense of buying them, okay. You're not representing the buyer and the seller. And because of the fact that you have sessions for networking and things, people have another reason for joining in. So again, you're doing it right. Now, you could keep on having winners like you had a couple of weekends ago. You won't have enough horses to fill it with. But again, it's part of the success. If you at least hit it with a good horse with well breeding, you got an opportunity to make a heck of a lot of money.
And Joe, one of Dad's other favorite topics to talk about is depreciation, which is right up there. If you did hashtag depreciation, I'm sure it'd be one of the most popular looks on Google these days. So much so that he's going to tell you, Joe, that if you buy a horse at the November sale or you buy a horse privately before year end, that you can have special allocation and depreciate it. And he is a firm believer in it, so much so that he made sure that when my sisters and I were born, that we were all born before year end. That way we would count towards the current tax year, even though, my birthday's a week before New Year's. So that is putting, policy into practice as far as I'm concerned. Talk to us a little bit about depreciation of horses and if it still makes sense to buy horses here, Thanksgiving and December of 2024.
Again, John, great question. Most accountants will tell you if you buy it in November, you get 2 months depreciation. They'll also tell you that if you buy a horse, okay, and the Internal Revenue Code says it has to be put in use, well, that means racing. Bzzz. No, it doesn't mean racing. Putting it in training, okay, qualifies it to take the depreciation this year. You don't have to even pay for it. As long as you sign the slip, you can take depreciation on it. And you don't take 2 months. You take special allocation, and you can write it off almost entirely in the year you buy it. And if you buy a mare in foal, there's some extra deductions you can get for the in-foal uterus. Now, again, you'd say, well, Len, doesn't everybody know this? I'm supposed to be a tax expert. And yet when it comes to pensions, okay, I know the simple things about profit sharing and pension plans and IRAs and SEPs and KEO. But boy, oh boy, I need an expert if I'm going into weighted average, early retirement, or combination plans. Well, the same thing happens with estate planning. I know the basics, but I don't know about grits, grats, generation skipping. Well, I don't expect normal accountants to know all the special rules on horses, but I do, because we obviously have horses in every category. mares, okay, yearlings, weanlings. Also, we have farms. So the normal thing for an accountant to look at a farm and say, okay, structure according to the IRS tables, 20 years. But that they don't look at the small print that says special purpose buildings, such as barns, which gives you a write-off in 1 year. Okay, how about land? I see so many tax returns where land is a huge number. Land is not depreciable. If you look at it under the microscope, though, the land includes roadways, fences, paddocks, trees, all of which are tax deductible if you read the small print. But you wouldn't read the small print if that's not your specialty.
That's why we come to you to give us the small print and break it down for us. There's another question I got from a prospective West Point partner recently, just in terms of business expenses. Like if he buys into a horse and he drives up to Saratoga, he stays there for the weekend, like, is there a way to claim some of those expenses as part of your business? Like, I think it probably goes back to whether or not you're an active investor or a passive investor. But yeah, just give us like the layman's explanation of whether or not, if you own horses, you can claim business expenses when you go to see them race.
Gee, Joe, I was going to. That's a great question, and I expected you to ask a question like, I have that question, and I have one more question. I got married this year. Number one, is that a casualty loss disaster, or two?
For her it is.
He set him up for that one.
Or can I write off some of the expenses for people I entertain who are part of the horse community? But the first question that you asked is really, if I had to classify the number one deduction that most people miss, it's that deduction that you brought up. And they say, well, I see my K1 from West Point, and it gives me my loss. And I'm assuming that I can treat it as business because I've had the 100 hours between, the sessions and going to the sales and going to watch the races. Okay? But can I take these deductions for going up there? And the answer is yes, you can. But Len, I know that business deductions are not deductible normally but it is if you have a partnership, okay? And there are ways of picking them up on the tax return. But yes, you can deduct going to sales, going to the races, okay? Going to meetings. Okay? It's a big missed deduction, home office expense. I mean, it's all there. Now, again, it pays to have an opportunity to make money. And let's not gloss over this passive versus active versus hobby, because when you join a partnership, you have the opportunity, the strategy that if you hit, you can hit really big. And that's all it takes is one big year out of 10 or 15, and you're still going to be okay.
One final question for me, and that involves independent contractors. We're constantly using what I would call a one-off individual. Somebody, when we ship horses to the Breeders' Cup, we used a new blacksmith out there. When we ship horses to Canada, it's a different vet than what we use normally in Ocala. When we go to a sale, we use independent contractors to shortlist for us or to vet out horses for us. So if the professionals on the other end are independent contractors, does that diminish the ability for them to take deductions, or is that an opportunity for them?
It's an opportunity for them. Let's go through it in a couple of different steps. There was a big push, by the IRS, very successful, against trainers who said, hey, every one of these people, are really employees of you, not independent contractors, and therefore you're subject to Social Security, unemployment, et cetera, kind of thing. And they won a number of big cases, as you remember, against very big name trainers who got hit for large fines. I mean, so much so that Karen McLaughlin stopped training because it was so horrendous. But from the payer's point of view and from the person receiving it, it is really very advantageous for them to be independent contractors, because if they are, they can deduct against it home office expenses, automobile, medical, etc. But they can't be working just for you. If they're working for a number of people, then they qualify as independent, and then 100% of your payment to them, John, is 100% deductible, and you don't have to worry about those other things.
And from their standpoint, that allows them then to put more money into retirement accounts and things like that if they're independent.
Absolutely correct. Not only retirement, John, but also take their automobile, their home office, their travel to and from, which they couldn't do if they're an employee.
Last question from me. It's a personal one. You were honored this summer at the Racetrack Chaplaincy brunch at Saratoga. It looks like it was a beautiful event. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it, but I was there in spirit with the video, and I heard that was a big hit. Certainly you're a very deserving honoree. Just what was that day like, after pouring your heart and soul and obviously a lot of money into the business over the years, to have so many people there to celebrate you and your contributions to the industry?
Well, thank you, Joe. It was one of the highlights. I mean, I've been fortunate that I've been honored a number of times by a number of different organizations. Terry Finley, who's a real good friend, told me that he had been honored and he raised a record $200,000, even though the budget was about $100,000. And my response to Terry and to Chaplain was, if Terry could do that, I could do more. Now, again, when it came out, the fact that we raised more than $400,000, what that means, though, is it's not a pat in the back for Len. Okay, as I told the chaplain who said, "How did you do it?" I said it was easy. I told my clients I'd turn them into the IRS if they didn't support me. But when I saw what the money could be used for, instead of chicken once a week, we could have meat and fish every single time. Instead of backpacks for just kids of a certain age, we could have backpacks for all of them. We could have sneakers for everybody. We could have more money that goes into the summer camp. They run a wonderful, wonderful program there, and I encourage more and more people to do it. But it was really great to have John get up there, introduce me, and not tell bad jokes about me. Okay, it was nice to be able to beat Terry, but more importantly, it was nice to bring the attention to something that's really, really worthwhile. Now, was the fact that we won the Breeders' Cup a couple times, okay, exciting? Yeah, but John's got to win it a couple more times before he gets to be, the top dog in this family. Right?
All right, Len, thank you so much for stopping by. Always valuable insight. And don't forget, there's a complimentary confidential half-hour consultation for listeners of Rail Talk. Just call Len up at, what's that number, Michael? 732-634-5100. Or go to greencode.com. Len, thank you so much for the time and the insight, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Keep up the great work, okay?
All right, so that's going to do it for episode 70 of Rail Talk. Thank you to Samantha Perry for coming through. Thank you to Len Green for stopping by. Go check out Len Green and the Green Group at greencode.com so they can get you set for the 2025 tax season. Thank you to our producer, Patty Wolf, our associate producers, Julia Agresta and Nathan Wilkinson, my co-pilot, John Green. Have an absolutely fabulous Thanksgiving this weekend. Eat a bunch, watch some football, and then come right on back early next week to see your boys again. See you then.